Welcome to the 2021 July monthly safety meeting. Our vision: we will deliver the best customer experience with industry-leading safety, reliability, and innovation. What does it mean to you? What part do we play in achieving this vision? Our overview this month: during today's meeting, we will be covering customer service and ADA sensitivity announcement, and we will talk about HASCOM, lockout, and tagout. We will refresh ourselves around the fundamental of customer service fundamentals, ADA sensitivity announcement, HASCOM or hazardous communication, and LOTO or lockout tagout. Before we start with our fleet safety, please complete all 3 pages, including the crossword puzzles in the back of your quiz. Now we're going to go ahead and play Fleet Safety Part 1 of Customer Service.
Transit riders expect the same things all customers expect, that we will do whatever it takes to satisfy their needs. That sounds easy, but excellent customer service seems so rare. Why is that? Some of the challenges are rooted in human behavior, and others are organizational in nature. You may be tired, stressed, or depressed. Schedules can be challenging. Customers can be demanding. All of these things are part of life, but they don't have to stop us from providing excellent customer service. Some people think the customer needs us more than we need them, but nothing could be further from the truth. Transit providers used to be very operations focused. It was about moving people from point A to point B. A better approach is putting the customer at the center of everything we do, with our mission being to meet their mobility needs. Consider this structure with the customer at the center of everything. In this model, all of the activities and all job duties of staff throughout the organization are understood as supporting the relationship between the customer and the transit operators.
I think the best way to create a culture of customer service is through example. Each one of us as managers, as mentors, as instructors should emulate what good customer service is.
It's an organizational thing that requires a lot of teamwork, right from your operator on down through dispatch and to me and to the big boss, the CEO.
I've learned to place myself in the individual's place as to meeting their needs and getting complete information from them so that I can best assist them.
And number one advice is giving patrons respect, being on time, and going the extra mile when they ask questions or if they're lost. But that's the number one is respect.
Be friendly. I mean, we deal with all different types of passengers. No one person's the same. Just be friendly, smile. You know, hi, how are you? Have a good day when they get off the bus. I mean, just treat them like a human being.
When you sit down in the seat for customer service, you have to be very patient and you have to be very understanding to what the customer or the client needs. Even when you do get an irate customer or someone who's upset, it's not about you. They're not upset with you. They're upset with the situation. You had nothing to do with causing the situation, but it's your responsibility to solve the situation or correct the situation to the best of your ability?
We do whatever it takes to make our customers satisfied, to make sure they're taken good care of. Greet them with a smile, tell them your name, and that's what it takes.
Providing excellent customer service is obviously good for your customers, but it improves your quality of life too. Here are 6 truths about delivering excellent customer service. You make people's lives better by meeting their needs, and that feels good. Meeting people's needs and resolving their problems lowers your stress level, and who doesn't want that? By providing excellent customer service, you are building community support for transit. That translates into increased ridership, more funding, and improved job security. When you do an exceptional job, you feel pride in what you do. How we relate to people is determined by our basic attitudes. Cultivate a genuine appreciation for your customers. The same principle applies for how we treat each other and our coworkers. And finally, for a culture of excellence and customer service to take root, it means everyone in the organization must be committed to it. Every member shares in the responsibility.
There you go. Have a good afternoon.
All right, question number 1. Communication is key to our success with customers, true or false? The answer is true. Effective, clear communication will help avoid confusion and lead to more happy and satisfied customers. Miscommunications can lead to disagreements and upset customers and poor customer service. As a professionals, we must do everything we can to provide excellent customer service. Question number 2. What are some things to remember when dealing with a confrontational passenger? Remember to stay calm and be self-aware of the attitude you have. Follow these steps to de-escalate a confrontational passenger. Determine why the passenger is upset and, if possible, try to resolve the situation verbally by 1. Listening to the passenger. 2. Acknowledging their issue. 3. Expressing your understanding. And number 4, stating that you will try to help resolve the issue. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to part 2 of the ADA sensitivity announcement.
The New York City Transit Department of Buses and MTA Bus Company take pride in providing equal access to all our customers. In accordance with the 1990 Americans with Disabilities Act, New York City Transit buses are accessible to passengers with mobility-related disabilities. Accessibility goes beyond making buses available to people who use wheelchairs or mobility devices. We strive to make taking the bus easy and comfortable for people of all abilities. A crucial part of this is disability etiquette. At Transit, we all work together to provide courteous and respectful service to all of our customers. The following video covers New York City Transit's policies and best practices for serving people with disabilities. We will start by showing some scenarios in which bus operators assist passengers with disabilities so that you can get to know important features on your bus and see good customer service in action.
customers who are blind.
When a person who is blind or has low vision boards a bus, they might ask the bus operator to announce their stop. The ADA requires that a bus operator announce a customer's specific stop request as well as major intersections and points of interest. Be proactive. If a person who is blind or has low vision enters the bus, be ready to offer your help.
Good morning, is this the M15?
Good morning. Yes, it is. What stop would you like?
South Ferry Terminal?
Yes, sir. I'll announce it when we get there.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Service animals.
A service animal is usually a dog, but not always. Service animals may perform any of the following tasks: guide people who are blind or have low vision, assist people who are deaf or hard of hearing, pull wheelchairs, pick up and carry objects, help people recognize and avoid hazards. Most service animals can be recognized by their collars, tags, and/or harnesses. However, these are not required for a service animal to ride the bus. The MTA offers volunteer identification for people with service animals. However, it is not mandatory. While you may never ask someone to disclose their disability, you may ask what service the animal provides. There are appropriate and inappropriate ways to interact with a service animal.
Is that your pet?
No, he's a service animal.
We do any tasks?
He guides me and occasionally he will pick things up for me.
Can he do any tricks? Excuse me, sir. Is this your pet?
No, he's a service animal.
Does he do any tasks?
He guides me and occasionally he will pick things up for me.
Thank you. Would you like me to announce your stop?
Yes, please. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Find your seat. Under.
Always refrain from petting or interacting with service animals without the owner's permission. Service animals are always allowed to ride the bus unless they are disruptive or threatening to the operator or passengers. Pets, which are different from service animals, must be kept in a closed container.
Customers who have a speech disability. Sometimes you encounter customers who have a speech disability. Speech disabilities can be caused by cerebral palsy, a stroke, or other disabilities. When speaking with someone with a speech disability, it is important not to make assumptions. For example, never assume the person is intoxicated. The key is to have patience. Feel comfortable asking them to repeat themselves. If all else fails, you may ask them to write their question down. Always speak to the person directly. Do not ask their companion or stranger to speak for them, even if you are having difficulty understanding. Hello, ma'am. Can you tell me if this bus stops at North 7th Street in Williamsburg?
What did you say?
Hello, ma'am. Can you tell me if this bus stops at North 7th Street in Williamsburg?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat yourself? I didn't quite understand the question.
Yes. Can you please tell me if this bus stops at North 7th Street in Williamsburg?
Yes, it does, sir. Please have a seat, and I will let you know when we arrive.
Thank you.
Customers who use wheelchairs or other mobility devices.
Many of our customers use mobility devices. Mobility devices include walkers, wheelchairs, and medical strollers. As you follow your route, it is important to use forward planning.
And watch for people who use mobility devices waiting at bus stops.
It is important to remember that a person's device is a part of their physical space, and it's never appropriate to touch or move it without the person's permission. A common mistake bus operators often make is referring to a disabled person by their device. Mobility devices are tools that people use to get around. People are not defined by them.
Watch out, wheelchairs are boarding.
Good morning. Please stand clear of the ramp so I can extend it. Hello, folks. Would you kindly relinquish these seats for my 2 wheelchair users? They board the bus. Thank you. Great, sir. You can board. Take your time.
Each bus has 2 spaces for wheelchair users. If a bus is filled at capacity, meaning both spaces for wheelchair users are filled, the operator should politely inform the person and check to see when the next bus is scheduled.
If the bus is full, but wheelchair spaces are not occupied by wheelchair users, and a wheelchair user wishes to board, you must ask other passengers to make room for them.
One of the most common complaints we get from our passengers is that bus operators pass and leave them at the bus stop without stopping.
Many customers use mobility devices that are different from wheelchairs. Some people use canes or walkers. Some parents or caregivers may have a child with a disability who needs to use a medical stroller.
The ramp is for any passenger who requests it. All those shopping carts, strollers that are not medical strollers, and walkers may be used on the ramp.
Stepping up or down from the curb to the bus can be difficult for people with disabilities or seniors. Curbing or kneeling the bus makes it easier for these passengers to board.
Always curb the bus unless there's an obstruction in the bus stop.
Kneel the bus whenever a customer requests it. Anyone can ask you to kneel the bus, whether or not they have a visible disability.
If the bus stop has an obstruction, the operator should stop in the street parallel to the curb and put on the hazard lights.
Personal care attendants. Personal care attendants, or PCAs, are people who assist the people with disabilities or seniors. A PCA may be an employee, spouse, child, relative, or friend, and may be a different person every day. Passengers who are eligible for our paratransit or Access a Ride program have a special Metro card with their name and photo that they use to ride the bus or subway. PCAs are allowed to ride the bus for free if the disabled person who they are assisting has an Access a Ride Metro card that states they are eligible to ride with a PCA. When assisting a passenger with a PCA, remember, always speak to the person directly, not their PCA. Do not let the PCA ride on the lift or ramp. It is not safe. You do not need to verify the identity or relationship of the PCA if they are riding with a passenger with an Access a Ride card.
Customers who have invisible disabilities. As you drive your route, you may meet a person who asks for help or an accommodation who appears to be able-bodied. Remember, there are many disabilities that may not be readily visible. If someone is asking for help, trust that they need it. Never ask someone to disclose their disability.
Customers who have cognitive disabilities. Some transit customers may have cognitive disabilities. A cognitive disability can be Down syndrome, a traumatic brain injury, or any disability in which a person processes information differently from typical thinking. Often, cognitive disabilities are invisible. As with other disabilities, the key is to never make assumptions. If a customer appears to have a cognitive disability or seems to have difficulty understanding you, here are some tips. Speak clearly. If giving directions, give concrete landmarks. Always have a clear beginning and an ending to the conversation. Avoid using figurative language. Do not speak down to the person or use baby talk.
Customers who are deaf. Many people who are deaf or hard of hearing use the bus. It's important to keep in mind that people who are deaf communicate in many different ways. Some people read lips and are verbal. Some may hear with difficulty. Some people may communicate with American Sign Language. One method of getting your point across may be to gesture or use a pen and paper. While people who are deaf and hard of hearing communicate in a variety of ways, it's important to take a person's cue when interacting.
Yes, we do. We do go to Union Square.
Priority seating.
When a person who's in a walker or a wheelchair need to get on or off safely, the driver should make sure that that person is on the bus safely and secured.
Our buses have priority seating for passengers with disabilities and seniors. There are two kinds of priority seating. There are the two sets of seats behind the operator, which face the interior of the bus. These must be used for wheelchair users if needed. The bus also has seats which face the front, in addition to the two groups of seats behind the driver. It is mandatory that people sitting in these seats move if a person who uses a wheelchair or mobility device gets on the bus, or if a person with a disability asks for a seat.
As a bus operator, we ask you to provide courteous and professional service for all of our customers. When working with people with disabilities, it is especially important to keep the following guidelines in mind. Be patient with your customers and yourself. Be proactive about offering help, but do not insist. Don't make assumptions about what people can or cannot do. Not all disabilities are visible. Never ask someone to disclose their disability. Refrain from touching people, service animals, or mobility devices. Use all of the ADA features on your route. The ramp, lift, and kneeling features can be used by any customer upon request. Attitude is contagious, and other customers on your bus will reflect your attitude by exhibiting a positive and pleasant demeanor. Others will be more cooperative and patient while the customer with a disability is boarding. Our customers are listening and watching you, and patience can make a huge difference in someone's day. In closing, thank you for the professional job that you do every day.
Question number 1. The ADA requires the bus operator to announce at stop requests as well as major intersections and point of interest. True or false? That is true. Making a requested announcement not only helps your passenger get where they want to go, it requires by the ADA. Question number 2. The services animals are regularly pets and are okay to pet and feed. True or false? Well, the answer is false. You should always refrain from touching or petting the owner's service animal without their permission. Service animals are always allowed to ride the bus unless they are threatening or disruptive to passengers or the bus operator. Question number 3, you'll be answering this on your own. When speaking to someone with speech disability, it is very important to never what? Please answer the question. Moving to question number 4. Also, you will answer this question. When a person with mobility device needs assistance, you must always do what first? Before we move on to injury prevention, part 3, HASCOM, under the law, transportation companies must provide the same services to people with disabilities that they do all other customers. As a service provider for MB Transportation, your goal is to properly serve all passengers no matter what. Also, there are many different types of disabilities or other issues you will encounter on your route. When providing services to people with disabilities, remember to put yourself in their shoes. Become familiar about what their needs are, and think about how you would like to be treated if you had the same disability. So, continue part 3 of HASCOM.
When I say OSHA compliant hazard communication standard training, you may think, well, that sounds boring. Please stop talking to me. If I zone out for the entire thing, does it still count? But there's more to this OSHA standard than an attention-grabbing title. A lot more. In the United States, we as consumers have become much more discerning about what's in the products that we buy. This is true when it comes to food, home improvement, and cosmetics. But when it comes to hazardous substances in the workplace, we tend to be a little bit more casual. Get her done! I'm Rachel Walla with Ally Safety, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the Hazard Communication Standard and why it matters to you and your health. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Have you ever been eating junk food and you start to get suspicious that it's just a little bit too good to be natural? So you start looking at the ingredients on the package, and slowly you start to comprehend that nothing in this package has come in contact with nature. Except for maybe corn, and that was like 3 processing facilities ago. So you start Googling the ingredients, and pretty soon you're an expert on things you can't even pronounce. Most of us as consumers are getting much more discerning about what we eat. But eating is only one of the ways that we can get exposed to hazardous substances. There's also inhalation. Inhalation is how we get exposed to things like asbestos, silica, and of course now coronavirus. There's also absorption through the skin, which a lot of people tend to forget about. But remember, if you can get a dose of nicotine through the skin, or birth control, or vitamins, it's just as likely that you can get a toxic exposure through your skin. Or injection. Injection happens when we get exposed to a hazardous substance through a break or a cut in the skin, or when a hazardous or sharp object breaks the skin's barrier and we get exposed to whatever was on that object. A classic example of this is needle sticks in medical facilities. And lastly, back to ingestion. Chances are, if you're eating lunch in a contaminated workplace or with dirty hands, you are most likely ingesting some of whatever it is that you work with. When it comes to hazardous substances in the workplace, we tend to leave that all up to our employer, despite the fact that our own actions have huge implications on our own safety and health. And what's even more interesting is that we as employees only gained the right to know about the hazardous substances in our workplace in the 1980s. Before that, the work world was pretty suspect. You see, in 1983, OSHA implemented the Hazard Communication Standard. This was also known as the Employee Right to Know Act.
But I want to
talk to you about how we inspect for compliance with our hazard communication standard for construction. We do that on every inspection now, no matter what, because we want all employers and employees to know the hazards of the chemicals at their work sites.
The point of this act was for employees to be informed about the hazardous substances that they're working with and be protected from those substances.
Most managers and workers don't know as much as they should about the chemicals they work with.
It's also the same standard that gave us things like safety data sheets, or SDSs, and outlined how hazardous materials have to be labeled.
Research hazardous chemicals for yourself. I think you'll agree that minimizing the risk of employee exposure to hazardous chemicals will result in a healthier, more productive workforce.
This was a huge step forward in workplace safety. Now, if you're like a lot of people I know, you may be thinking, well, that's great, but have you ever tried to read an SDS? Not only are they boring, but you practically need a degree in chemistry to understand what they're trying to tell you. Well, I've got good news for you there, too. Remember when we talked about the hazard communication standard being the employee right to know standard? Well, back in 2012, the U.S. implemented what's known as the globally harmonized system. It was a really good thing for workplace safety because although we got the right to know from the hazard communication standard, this actually more gave us the right to comprehend. What I mean by that is they made SDSs and chemical labels so much easier to understand than they had been previously. So today, you don't need an advanced degree to understand what an SDS is saying. It's easy. There's super simple pictograms, easy to understand labels, and the SDSs are organized in 16 sections that are much easier to interpret. You can make a huge impact on your health and safety just by taking an active role and looking into what the hazards of these substances actually are. So the next time that you interact with a hazardous substance at work, make sure that you take the right precautions to keep yourself safe and healthy. That's what the hazard communication standard is all about.
In 1983, OSHA implemented the hazard communication standard. True or false? That answer is true. In 1983, OSHA implemented the Hazard Communication Standard, aka Employee Right to Know Act. This was established to help all employees be informed about the substance they are working with and to be protected. Question number 2, the globally harmonized system did what for SDS labels? Well, the globally harmonized system created standards that help SDS, safety data sheet labels, and data sheet easier to understand than they have been previously. They are easy to interpret pictograms, easy to understand labels, and the SDS are organized into 16 different sections that are simple to interpret. Bonus question, how many communication standard pictograms are there? If your answer is 9, that is correct. That would be health hazard, flame, exclamation mark, gas cylinder, corrosion, exploding bomb, flame over circle, environment, and skull and crossbone. Now we're going to cover part 4, lockout, tagout.
Lockout tagout is one of the most important safety concepts in the workplace. Lockout tagout is the procedure that we use to control hazardous energy during processes like maintenance and inspections. The world world we live in is powered by all sorts of energy sources. This energy powers our work. But if this energy isn't controlled, it can be dangerous and even deadly. This becomes especially important during maintenance activities like inspections and repairs. The way to control hazardous energy is by using lockout-tagout procedures. In lockout-tagout, the lock physically isolates the source of energy to prevent any accidental activation. The tag provides important information. Lockout procedures have 4 basic parts. Number 1, identify hazardous energy sources. Number 2, de-energize these sources. Number 3, apply locks and tags to prevent unintentional startup during work. And number 4, test the system to make sure energy isolation was successful. This is sometimes referred to as tryout. Then conduct your maintenance work safely. Once the work is finished, make sure you get everyone and all equipment out. Then you may remove the locks and tags and re-energize the system. Control energy hazards to keep yourself and your coworkers safe. Remember, lockout, tagout, and tryout to control hazardous energy sources.
All right, question number 1. What mechanical equipment or other equipment do we use can be lotto or lockout tagout? One major piece of equipment is your bus. From time you may encounter lotto controls installed in your vehicle in the form of a steering wheel cover with a lock on it. Our wheel boot lock onto one of the wheel indicate that the unit may be down for service or safety hazard repair. You are never to remove or ignore these lotto control devices, as doing so will be violation of company policy and a major safety hazard. Question number 2. What is the last thing you do before you remove lotto controls? Typically, an operator will never have to install or remove lotto controls. The task will usually be done by the authorized individual who either installed the controls and complete the repair, or an authorized supervisor that has confirmed the vehicle is safe to operate. We're going to go ahead and move on to the drive cam review. We're going to watch video 1. All right, we're going to watch that video one more time. All right, in this video, the operator stopped and is attempting to pull out back into traffic. As they pull out, they have to hard brake to avoid passing adverse vehicle. How could the driver have avoided the scenario? Remember, anytime you stop in traffic zone, whether to park or load and unload, before you pull back out into traffic, you need to keep your head on a swivel and get 360 degrees of awareness. You need to clear your blind spots by rock and rolling in your seat and checking your mirrors for vehicle and pedestrians. Once it's all clear, you can proceed out back into traffic. Are we going to watch that video, second video one more time? All right, in this video, the operator has to hard brake and change lanes to avoid a collision. How could the driver have avoided this scenario? Well, as an operator, you should always maintain a proper following distance and adjust your speed accordingly to the policies. For example, if you're traveling at 40 miles an hour, your following distance should be 4 seconds, following distance behind the vehicle in front of you. I just want to recap our following distance. Anything below 40 miles an hour, following distance is 4 seconds. Anything above 40 miles an hour, your following distance is 5 seconds. In the rain, 6 seconds. Snow, 7 seconds. And of course, ice and sleet, 8 seconds or more. I just want to remind you that before backing, please get out and look. I appreciate all of you guys doing an outstanding job. Keep up the good work and be safe. Thank you for watching the July 2021 safety meeting.